being a Massachusetts moderate may not be such a bad thing.
President Obama has his own safety net. It's foreign affairs.
And social value issues back in the campaign. I'm Frank Newport, Gallup editor-in-chief.
I'm Susan Page, Washington Bureau Chief for USA Today.
And this is Election Matters. Well, Susan, another week, another vote. This was in Nevada. Not unexpected. Romney won big time, 50%. I think was the final count. It took him a long time, didn't it, to get the count done in Nevada. But he got 50% and Gingrich down to 21 and so on and so forth. Gingrich afterwards held a news conference and said, I'm going on, right? I've developed a news. He loves strategy. Newt does. He loves strategy. He says, I got a new strategy. I'm going on. He's certainly not giving up, is he?
No, he's not. And the proportional representation rules that the Republicans are using this time for the first time to distribute delegates helps him keep this going on. Although I have to say, the thing out of Nevada that struck me the most was the decline in turnout. Turnout down about 25%. Compared with 2008.
What's that tell us?
It tells us that Republicans in Nevada not that enthused, apparently, about this field. That's a point that Newt Gingrich is also making.
That he needs to get back in because he'll create enthusiasm.
He says there's not enthusiasm for a Massachusetts moderate like Mitt Romney, and he points to an interesting statistic from the Florida primary last week. In the counties that Gingrich won, turnout was up. In the counties that Romney won, turnout was down in Florida.
Now, you mentioned the Massachusetts moderate because that's his mantra now. That is Speaker Gingrich, that Republicans don't want the Massachusetts moderate. However, being a moderate is not such a bad thing if a candidate, Mitt Romney, gets to the general election, right? Because there are a lot of moderates out there across the country. And that's the real issue now. If Gingrich is a conservative and really a strong conservative and got the nomination, all of a sudden he would be out of sync nationally. Yeah.
Moderate is kind of a poison term for a Republican candidate. Republicans overwhelmingly say they're conservative or very conservative. But that's not true when you go to the nation as a whole. In your Gallup data, 36% of Americans say that they are moderates. And we assume that disproportionately independents, those people in the middle, are likely to consider themselves moderates. So that might be a good thing if he makes it to the general election.
That's the big problem, of course, for Republicans historically, is trying to appeal to the base and then back to the middle to try to win in the general election. Now, in our empirical data, Romney's ahead nationally by 11 points. Our last update in our daily tracking, 35 to 24 above Gingrich. But we can't say that means he's the assured front runner because we've had such a roller coaster. You know, Newt Gingrich has come from behind several times in our tracking, so maybe Newt Gingrich is right. He could come back and edge back ahead of Mitt Romney in our national numbers, which I think right now are a very, very important thing for us to be tracking.
Although you found an interesting thing in looking at your national numbers in history, you know, people say Mitt Romney has not yet gotten a majority of Republicans. That's certainly true in most states. But you looked at Ronald Reagan standing in 1980. That was you know, a primary that he had to win as well. He had some challengers that year. At this point in the race, he had the support of 34% of Republicans, right about where Mitt Romney is.
That's
now.
right. Of course, he went on to get the nomination. Bob Dole, we looked at in 1996, just had about 40%. So it's not totally out of the question that the winner of the Republican nomination has less than 50% at this point. What's up this week? There's more voting going on, right? Although these are kind of interesting things going on, for example, in Missouri, right? In Minnesota and in Colorado.
Right. We have caucuses Tuesday in Colorado and in Minnesota, both important states in the fall, especially Colorado, and a primary in Missouri, but it's not a primary that affects.
That's what I meant by interesting thing.
The actual delegate, the actual delegate allocation. And one other thing about Missouri, Gingrich didn't make it on the ballot. So it's a state in which Rick Santorum has devoted some attention, but it's not clear how big a bounce you can get out of a contest that doesn't include one of your prime competitors and doesn't count toward convention delegates.
Well, that's what we're going to have to watch, because right now it's not so much delegates as the big mo, right, the momentum that they're going for. Of course, they're all vying to run against Barack Obama. He said he deserves a second term. I think he said that with Matt Lauer in that interview just before the Super Bowl on Sunday because the economy is getting better. And sure enough, last Friday, we talked about it last week, unemployment looked better, down to 8.3%. So Obama's claiming that, hey, things are on the uptick and I'm your man for the fall. And of course, the better the economy gets, he's right, the worse the Republican case that he needs to be thrown out of office.
That's right. Although the economy not so good that people really feel that the country's heading in the right direction. We haven't seen that. And when you look at Obama's approval rating, it continues to be stronger on issues like foreign policy, defense, handling terrorism, worse on things like the economy, creating jobs, and holding down the budget deficit.
Yeah, that's what you meant by that safety net, because these are from our new Gallup GPSS survey, which is on foreign affairs every February. We'll be releasing those data as we go forward. But you're absolutely right. When we look at it, it's kind of amazing. He looks like Bush, or either the Bushes, because Obama's strongest approval ratings come internationally and his weakest come domestically. I guess that would be good if the economy picks up. Then, as you say, there's a safety net, because then Obama has both sides covered, right? Foreign affairs and the economy.
It prevents Republicans from mounting a line of attack on foreign policy issues. On the other hand, if the economy doesn't get better, it probably doesn't matter. We know that voters are focused on the economy first and foremost.
Yeah, absolutely. They continue to tell us that when we ask them. Values issues, a lot of things going on we didn't necessarily anticipate. The whole flap with the Susan B. Komen Foundation and its contributions to Planned Parenthood, and then they're backtracking from backtracking and giving them contributions. And of course, the whole federal money being used for contraceptive kind of thing that Newt Gingrich has picked up on, right? And says that Obama, what did he say? Obama is anti-religion?
Saying waging a war on religion. The issue is regulations that the Department of Health and Human Services put out that require Catholic hospitals and Catholic colleges to offer contraception as part of their health care coverage under the new health care law.
We just don't find, or haven't found, that values in our data at all show up. We asked Republicans even, who generally are more focused on that all last year at a number of different times, what's the most important issue to you in choosing a candidate? And social values issues were always dead last, and other polling shows the same thing. So I can't believe that's going to be a huge issue, these kind of values things, but we'll wait and see.
Maybe one of those things that matters most of all right now when they're competing for Republican votes, and less as you get toward the fall.
You know, Susan, most interesting findings of the week. We, and I'm sure all of our viewers have seen this, went through and compiled all our data from last year and broke out Obama's job approval rating for every state in the union, plus the District of Columbia, where we are right now. So really fascinating results. Not shocking necessarily. Obama does west and the east, states like Massachusetts and the District of Columbia, Hawaii, his home state, and he does worse than states like Utah, right, which is one of the most Republican states in the country. But there's some competitive states in the middle, and it gives us an interesting picture about what Obama may need to do to get the electoral votes he needs to win, right?
And Ron Brownstein, National Journal, took these numbers, put them on a chart to see how far Obama needed to go to get 270 electoral votes, the numbers that you needed to win. He's got to go down and win all the states through Virginia, where his approval rating is 44.5%. And in fact, that would include Georgia. That's a hard state for a Democrat to win. Brownstein calculates that he really needs to pick up Oregon and North Carolina, which are right before that. That means he needs to get all the states where Obama's approval rating is 43.7% or better. You know, that shows the uphill climb that Obama faces in some ways, because 44%, lots of states down there in that danger territory, he needs to get those up higher. 48% we think is the lowest a president has won nationwide when his approval rating is at 48%. So it does show that President Obama has to improve his rating in these states if he's going to win in November.
Yeah, now these are for 2011, so already this year we're seeing some signs that his approval rating is getting better, but we'll see. It's a great gradation. Last year, about a 20-point, taking out the District of Columbia, where he was at 80% approval overall, there's a 20-point difference between his highest and lowest states, so a lot of variation out there across the country. Well, next week, we'll see what happens. Voting continues and continues and continues now for month after month. Going to be fascinating. I'm Frank Newport, Gallup Editor-in-Chief.
I'm Susan Page, Washington Bureau Chief for USA Today.
And this is Election Matters.